we'll be working on special screws that won't vibrate out. You can make them right in your own shop. This is my giant Super Sportster. When I was putting my cowl on, I didn't want it to come off. And we all think about, what if we could find a special kind of screw that held this on? Well, these are ordinary servo button head screws you can buy in bulk at your hobby store. But what's special about it? Look around it. You'll see a little blue circle. And I'm going to try to get up even closer. Let's take a look at that. Now if you look at these two screws, you can see there's something under them. There you go. If you look closely, you'll see that it's got something soft and thick under it. Well, believe it or not, that's fuel tubing. You can make these yourself, and I'm going to show you how. It takes a minute to make one, maybe 30 seconds. Let's get started on that. What are we going to need for this? Glad you asked. We're going to need our newly sharpened X-Acto knife with a fresh blade. We're going to need a hole punch set, or at least one punch out of it that's about, what is that, 1/4 of an inch possibly. We're going to need a wire. One end needs to be sharpened and the other end needs to be slightly bent to push out what we punch. We're going to need some, I use large fuel tubing for this because it's got a nice thick wall on it. And we're going to need a hammer and our Diet Coke. Diet Coke's very important. Take about, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch. And if you're going to make 3 or 4 of them, cut them all off at once. Then take your knife, very carefully just slice down through the one wall of the fuel tubing so it can be opened up. And do that to each one of the 4. Or with however many you're doing. There you go. Now, this is how easy this is. I'm going to pull up close so you can see what I'm doing. You take your fuel tubing, and what I do is I open it up with 2 fingers. I take my punch and I just lay it into that piece of fuel tubing like that. Hold it down firmly, and then take a hammer, give it a quick shot. That should pop it right through. And of course it doesn't, because I told you it would. There. It was just hanging on by a thread. We're going to do all 4 here while we're talking about it. And your wood's going to get a lot of little holes in it if you're using softwood like this. I have a scrungy old piece of hardwood that I use for this as well, and that works pretty well. There you go, and once it's inside, you just push it out with your wire like this. Okay, you've got these little tiny pieces of blue fuel tubing in a circle. I lay it down on the wood with my sharpened wire, find the exact center of it and push the wire into it, and then I hold it over a little hole that I drilled in the wood and push it down until it's actually going right through it. You can stack them right up on the wire. You're going to have fuel line gasket shish kebab here. Now, of course, you've seen the button head screws that you use for holding down servos. You can buy them in bulk by the 100 pack or the 25 pack in your local hobby store. Here's what I do. I take a piece of tubing with the curled part curling toward the button head, and I start to screw it in. And it'll screw right down onto the screw all the way up to the button head. And you can see it goes very quickly, and you're going to have screws that are shock mounted because they have this little bit of silicone fuel line under the head. And because you punched it out in a circle, it's going to be pretty closely positioned to the head. So it's not hanging out in all different directions around the head. Occasionally you'll see a little bit of the blue around it, but it's not enough to notice unless you're within 2 feet of it and looking hard. And it does a great job. It took me 5 minutes to do 8 screws and install them. There's the screw with the blue fuel line, a little gasket of blue fuel tubing, and there you go. Tighten it down. You don't have to crunch it, just get it down so you know it's not going to vibrate loose. And there it is, done. You can hardly see it, and yet it does a beautiful job of holding it still. Well, that's it for another segment of Building with Jim. I hope our tool tips have helped you a little bit in your own shop and making your building projects a little bit easier. Tell your friends RC Sky Pilot on YouTube. We'd love to have them tune in and pick up on our building tips. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you at the field.